you know, I'll go add some hair.
Yeah, nice. Excellent, excellent. So, welcome back, everybody that's joining us again. We've got kind of a small group this time. It's not the end of the world. I'm sure people are busy. We'll follow up with them, kind of press them a bit. But we are in week 3, and we're going to start our web development foundations. Chris and I were kind of talking before class. He said he's hoping to build some of the scripts that we've done before that he was working on in his instance earlier into a web interface so people can get to it. So that's what we're going to do these next um, 3 weeks, actually. The next 3 weeks up until the last week of the course, we're going to be building our web application. So we're going to go through the foundations of web development this week. Starting today, we're on day 5, technically, the whole course, almost halfway through. And we're going to do backend frameworks, and we're going to set up our backend setup, which is going to be the basis on which we build everything else beyond that. So if you haven't been doing this in Python anywhere up to now is definitely the time to do it, because what we do today, at the end of today, you'll all have everybody that follows along. So then, there's only 3 of us in class today, but if you do these steps along the way, you'll have your web application. It's not an application yet, but you'll have your site up and ready and framed and ready to go. So it's going to be, I'll show you the naming convention, but it's just going to be your username that you have on Python Anywhere.pythonanywhere.com. And at the end of today, if you do the steps with me, you'll be able to go to that site, even on your phone or anything else. It'll be a live site. Won't be anything super, super interesting to look at, but it will be there. So, any questions about anything we've done up to today before we dive any further? I know we did a lot of sort of things pretty quickly in the last 2 weeks. I want to make sure nobody that's here on the call is stuck. I want to reiterate that if you are stuck, if you're watching this video and you didn't make it to class on this day and you're stuck on something, reach out to me and let me know, because it probably only takes a few minutes to get unstuck. But how's everybody doing on the call? Is anybody here stuck on anything, stuck anywhere in particular?
No, I am all caught up with the lessons to date.
Cool.
The only thing I'm stuck on is, I tried to get onto Code Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm going to go through it. I'm going to go through it again because I got it
Okay.
to work once, right?
Yeah.
And the first problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
I figured I was wrong. I wrote some alternate code and tested it, and in the console to make sure I was correct.
All right.
And I submitted it to Code Wars, and it gave me 108 errors. There aren't
Yeah.
108 characters in the entire.
Yeah, you got to check that test suite, man. That's the thing. So once you run it, I'd like, if you want sometime, we could dive into it and have a look if you're comfortable sharing your screen and we can see what you're seeing.
Okay,
Uh,
let me
yeah,
dial it up.
yeah, we could do that. We can do that now. We got a few minutes. You want to show me what you're running into? Because it could just be a matter of not pass. Is it just you're not passing all the tests? Is it like test failures you're seeing, or is it
It's,
errors you're seeing?
I think it was test failures. Let me find it
Okay.
again.
Okay. Here I can
I gotta have.
let me know you got it, and I can relinquish the screen share. We have a look at what you've
Well, let
got.
me let me find it first.
Yeah.
I'm still having multiple screens on a tiny little laptop, and
Yeah.
I bought a new one
Yeah.
Sunday, right? And I figure
Oh,
I'm just
cool.
going to sign into Google and run a couple laptops, right?
Mm-hmm.
And didn't quite work. And the reason being that the sign in thing. I
Yeah.
want the same account on my new laptop, but it's not working the way it's supposed to. Okay,
That's a pain.
let me look for Code Wars.
Yeah. While you're
Okay.
pulling that up, I'm just gonna just to mention for everybody else what we're gonna be doing today is a lot in. We're gonna do everything in Python Anywhere today. We're gonna be doing. Now we're gonna be jumping around a little bit between files in the console and jump through a number of settings that we're gonna set up. So mostly what we're doing today is setting up the framework for the web application that we're gonna be building off of from there. So definitely encourage you to do this along with us. Make sure you get the configuration right.
Okay.
You got it, Michael?
Now, let's deal with it later because I'm gonna have to
Okay, we
look
can do it
at
another
what.
time, man. If you want, yeah, if you want, we can pull me aside and I can we do like after class if you want to hang out or something like that. We can find a time for it.
Okay, yeah.
Cool. All right, so I'm back here on my dashboards. We're just gonna dive into this. Now, I was going to go over a little bit of kind of theoretical things about what the internet even is, but we just talk about them as we go. Really, the big thing to keep in mind, we're not going to beat it up too deeply, is that it's just grabbing files from a location. So your URL, your universal resource location, is where that file is that you're grabbing. So it's the same stuff that we've been doing with our Linux file structure, our Linux file system, and getting different files in different directories and doing things. And it's going to follow the same patterns, right? Again, so if you look up at the top here in the URL, it's got the www, which is outdated now. I don't know if anyone else has caught that, but modern websites don't even include this anymore. So there's no purpose to this really. The www just means World Wide Web, and we don't even call the internet that anymore. That's like a 90s thing. So not required, but this is really just saying where this stuff is. So this is saying that, I'm one of the users on here. This is my username, and now this is my spot. So we're going to be building these same things, these web pages. Keep in mind that it's the same thing that we've seen in Linux structure. That's all we're doing. So to get started, we've done things already in consoles. We've done some stuff with files. Now we're going to slide over to the web part of Python Anywhere. So we click on web. It's going to take us to this application page. And unless you've started an application, you should see nothing here. So if you've already started an application, you should probably destroy it because you only have one on a free version, or you should upgrade and you have a couple more. But since I'm keeping everything free, we're going to start with no web apps. We're going to start a new one from scratch. So I showed last week what we're going to build, ultimately, the to-do list. And I mentioned why we're going to do a to-do list. But I threw that away. So we're all starting from scratch. I took some notes on what I built, so I'm not building it completely from memory, but we're going to do it all together. So first step on the web page, we're going to add a new app. Click that. So give us a little warning about our domain name. It says if you upgrade, you get a specific, you get custom domain name, put it wherever you want to. You could buy that domain name wherever from a registry. You come back here and set it up. But what they'll give you for free is your username.pythonanywhere.com. That's going to be your address to your site / application once we build those pieces to it. I'm going to click next. The next one, we're going to select a web framework. We're going to do manual configuration on here. Now, we are going to be using Django.
Wait a minute.
But
How did you get to, oh, I see. I
got
leaped
it?
ahead. I leaped
Yep.
ahead.
You with me?
No, no, let me try. Okay, I have no web app, so I'm adding a new web app, right?
Yep. Add a new web app, and then it'll give
And
you
it
the warning about your
says,
domain name.
yeah.
Just hit next on that because that's just telling you what your app is going to be called, or your domain name will be
Oh,
if you
okay,
don't
okay.
customize it. Yep.
Let me write it down as we go along.
Sure. Take your time. And that's the other thing. I want to make sure that we're really clear on these steps and that we do it along the way because this is going
Okay,
to set
here
us
we
up for
have
later.
Django, Web2Py, etc.,
Yep.
right?
Yep. There you go. All right. So we're going to be selecting manual configuration on this with
Is this
the very bottom
because
one.
is this because you want us to appreciate all the automation built into the others?
Somewhat, but
Okay.
that's a good question. No, it's more to understand the mechanics in a way that you're not restricted to doing it here. So the steps that we're going to go through now after doing it manually are going to be very similar to what you would do if you're developing locally on your own machine. It's going to be the same
Okay.
steps to set up any Django project in any environment. So it's
Okay.
not going to be special to Python Anywhere. But once you know how to do those, yeah, you can shortcut this and just click Django and it'll set all these parts up for you and you'll just have it ready to rock. But
Sure.
yeah, so in some ways it's a matter of appreciation, but it's also so that you could take it and you're not limited to doing this in Python Anywhere and have no idea how to do the first few steps. Another kind of, I guess, caveat is if you are intent on doing this in your local environment, you absolutely can. You could do all these things. It may take you some time to download all the stuff you need. Probably not too many packages we're going to be using. A few of the steps at the beginning will be slightly different to get to the endpoint that we're going to get to. I'm not going to call those out along the way. So it's going to be up to you to figure that out if you don't want to do it in Python Anywhere, but you can. So again, that's another one of the reasons that we're not going to do any of these push button frameworks. We're going to do manual configuration so that we can use this outside of Python Anywhere, wherever we go, whatever we're doing. So after we click manual configuration, then you're going to select a Python version. We're going to talk about Python versions, not super deeply, but we'll mention it here in a minute when we talk about virtual environments, which is going to come up soon. This is a thing in Python that is very, very important to know which version you're working in. And if you end up working with a lot of different Python projects, you could potentially be using different versions. So any version of 3 is good. We talked a bit about versioning in the past, where the versioning system known as semantic versioning is major.minor.patch. There are some other things that you could put in there. That's kind of the broad scheme of versioning. So that means that all the 3 versions are backwards compatible with each other, but then when you go to 2, it's not. So there'll be major differences between 2 and 3. You typically aren't going to be using 2 to start anything, but you might find projects that are still out there, and the 3 is going to be the big one that you want to use. And if you don't have any reason to do an older version, just choose the newest that's available. This has 3.10. I think there's a 3.11 that came out as well, but the newest one they have here is 3.10. So we're going to grab that one. But again, if you have a specific reason to use another version, there may be. So, be aware of that sort of choice that you might be making. Marnie, thanks for joining us. You came in just in time. We're building the foundation of our web application. So if you want to catch up to us, this is important stuff. We can back up a few steps before we get too deep on it and lose you. Are you good? Okay, cool. So we're on the web tab. We've selected manual configuration. We're going to choose Python 3.10. And this is going to give us a note about manual configuration saying, okay, cool. This has got a WSGI. I pronounce that WSGI. I'm not sure if anyone else does, but I like reading it that way. That's normally in this location, our var.www. You could do some stuff, but it's your responsibility. Basically, is what it's telling you, right? So when we hit next at this point, Python Anywhere is going to spin up an application for us, and it's going to set up the very basic stuff that we need to have an application, and the screen will change to this. So now when you come to the web screen, it will take you to your web application details. It'll give you your URL right here. So if you put in a custom one at some point, it'll have that listed, and you can navigate to your site by clicking on it. If we do that, you see that little hello world thing. We got it already built there. So there you go. Web application, course is over. Everyone can go home.
This was the reload mic at reload my site name .python anywhere.
Yep. It should be your username.pythonanywhere.com. And when you're at the web tab, after you set it up, it'll be a link right here at the top. You can click on and open it up.
Okay.
And it should say exactly this. It should say, if you've done the steps up to now with the manual configuration, you should have something that says hello world looking at you. And then it's got some other links on web app setup.
I'm not seeing it. It's not
where are you stuck?
This is the oblong green kind of button.
No, that's reload. No. Up above that, there's a hyperlink with just the title of your site. It says pythonanywhere.com.
Okay. No wonder.
Click on that bad boy. Yep. Yeah, the reload. We're gonna be doing reload like crazy. That's an important thing to know. That's a good function, but we'll get to that in a minute. We'll be using it all the time. Like in the development process, that's going to be fundamental to know. So I'm glad you.
Okay, it's still not working. Wait a minute.
What's it doing?
It's going. Oh, it says all done. Your web app is now set up across this light green one at the top.
Good. So then look for underneath that, where it should say configuration 4.
Okay, yeah, it's working.
Yep, cool. So everybody can see this hello world at your username.pythonanywhere.com.
So let me try that.
Anybody not able to see this part?
They're trying to get me to upgrade it something. Okay, let's go through that part again because I'm missing a step or something.
Okay, where are you stuck? You have a screen that looks like this, or you have a screen that looks like?
I still have the one that says add a new web app. And above that, I have a URL, right?
It says it says your username.pythonanywhere.com.
Yes.
Yeah, that's your web app, right? And so just under that, there should be something that says configuration 4. If you have it on a full size screen, it'll be next to it. But if not, directly under that's the link to your web app. So if you open that up, click that link, it should take you to a page that looks just like this.
There, it did it.
There you go. You got it? Cool.
Yep, I got it.
All right. Excellent. So do a quick rundown on what's on this page. We're going to be adjusting some of the settings here and in a couple of the other files that we can access through here, or we might have to go make our own over the console shortly. We'll step through what's available. So this tells you, it says best before date. I guess we'll skip the refresh button because, Mike, you already found that one. Our reload button, we're going to use that a lot to, once we update code, do any changes on here, we're going to have to upload or refresh what's on the server. So that's the computer where all these things are being taken and presented back to you in your browser. Then underneath that, it just says that the free version will only run for 3 months so you have to sign in once every 3 months and click this button to tell it to run for another 3 months. Or you can upgrade. Got some information about the traffic, people coming to your site.
Okay, how do we get from the, do we just
Just-
back up a step for?
I'm just scrolling down. I'm just scrolling down on that web page.
Oh, okay, I was stuck
Yeah.
in the.
I'm not clicking on anything. I'm just scrolling down. So I'm
Okay,
on the web page. We've made the web app, and this is what comes on every web app page. With me?
yeah, okay, this is just like the list of specs or whatever.
Right. So we're going to be updating some things in the code section. This has a few directories that are highlighted here. One's going to be in red that says enter the path to your web app source code. And we don't have any web app source code yet, so we're not going to do that, but we're going to make that soon, and we'll come back here and update it. There's a working directory, which, if you have a reason to keep those different, you can do that. And there's a WSGI configuration, the WSGI configuration file. Now, this one is what they mentioned earlier, that we're gonna do some things. I'm gonna open that up here and we're gonna mess around in there and show you what that is. Has a note here about what's called virtual env, which we don't have to worry about right now, but we will set one of those up, a virtual environment. The purpose of these is, I'll get more in depth here in a minute, but the purpose of these is to separate out things like your Python version. So if you're working on multiple projects and they might have different versions of Python, they might have different packages, different versions of the same package. So what you do is create what's called a virtual environment, which is really just a kind of a folder with file instructions on which things to use in that space. And you do most of your work on Python in separate virtual environments. We'll go through the mechanics of that. It'll be obvious how that works. Even if conceptually it's a little fuzzy for you, we'll show you how to use it and how to get it done. And it's just something to just keep in mind that it's the way that you work in Python. You do it in virtual environments to make sure that you don't have conflicts. Talk a little more about that as we go. Log files. This is very important. When you're working and things go wrong, you're going to be going here to find out why. So there are 3 sets of logs, but the error log is going to be your best friend. So when something breaks, and it will, if you have, I'll show you how to set the settings up so that it gives you the maximum information back when it does break. But this is a place you can always get your error logs, even if you don't have your debugging settings set to give you information on the page that breaks, and you have it set up for production so no information is given back, so people can't hack your site, then you can still get to your error logs here. So error logs, very, very important to know.
If you're not breaking it, you're not learning.
Exactly, which is why I want you all to be doing this, play at home, because this is the way to do it. This is the way to learn. Static files we're going to skip for now. Is something we're going to get to later, but this is generally speaking your front end type stuff. So your CSS and JavaScript, like it has listed here, any sort of pictures, movies, any of those sorts of things that you upload and stay in one place and don't have to be accessed the same way. They call those static files. Django is the framework that we're going to be using. Doesn't do a great job with static files, but it does handle them, and I'll show you how to do it in Django as we go. All right, the last piece that we're going to talk about here, there's disable and delete your web app. So if you want to practice a couple of times, you could delete this and start another one just to make sure you get the mechanics down. But above that, we have the security section. And there are a few things in here that are kind of just worth noting. So first, they get a automatically provided host HTTPS certificate, which is just a security certificate so that you can do things securely. You can also set this setting optionally down here to force HTTPS connections, which is a good idea just to keep things more secure. I usually enable that just out of habit. If you have a reason not to, then feel free to leave it as it is. The other thing that I'm not going to do this time because it's just annoying to go to your site and have to put your password in every time. But if you're developing a site, because like I said, this is just live on the internet. This is out there. If you went to hiredlabsdi42.pythonanywhere.com, you could see this site. You could see it on your phone. It's on the internet now. So you could password protect this while you're developing it. So if you're working on something that you don't want people to be able to access before you give them access to it, and you don't want bots accessing your database and flooding your database with things, which they will do, you can put it on a password. It'll be stored here just as a word of caution. It'll be stored here in plain text if you set that. So your username and password will be set in plain text. So don't use username password combinations that you use other places that you don't want people to get a hold of, because it's just kind of chilling here. I'm not going to do that, but again, that's kind of best practice. So that's what's here. We'll be going back and forth to this page a lot. I just want to give you a quick orientation. So to get started, we're going to go into our WSGI configuration file. It's under the code section. I'm going to open this up and I'm going to do it in a new tab so that I keep things available. And this is our file. So when we open this up, it's going to have a whole bunch of stuff commented out with explanations. There's links to more documentation. There's some general debugging tips. And if we skip down to the comment that starts on row 13, line 13, I can zoom in a little bit so it's easier to read. We have our Hello World app. So this is, as it says, a pure WSGI, pure WSGI application. So HTTPS, generally, what that stands for. Anybody know what that stands for off the top of your head? Maybe not Chris.
Hypertext transfer protocol something.
Yeah, S is just secure. But yes, hypertext transfer protocol. So if we think about what that means, a protocol really is just, if you think about any time you were in the military and you talked on a radio, right? There's radio etiquette. You had certain frequencies you used. You had call signs you used. You had a way of talking. That's a protocol. That's all HTTP is. It's a fully specified list of rules on how text is transferred between computers. That's basically what it does. So it says we're supposed to get certain information from this computer that's requesting it, known as the client, and the server is going to give back certain information. So what we have here in this line 38 is all the mechanics of that in this WSGI format. So as you see, it's a Python function called application. It takes a couple of different things, and we're not going to break this down too deeply because it's not really important that we understand specifically how this works. We just need to know that this is where it's done for this kind of application. So you see a couple of things in here that says, like if you get good statuses, we're not going to go through page statuses, but these shouldn't be super unfamiliar to you. I'm sure we've seen 404s if we're on the internet, but all these different codes mean a specific thing. We're looking for 200, which is good. And this just handles that with some logic that we've seen before. Most of this is fairly familiar to us as we go. So if you're curious how this works, you can read this more specifically. But we're going to move down in this file because this is a file that was made for us automatically. And right now, again, if we run our program, this HTML string, which is being stored in the hello world variable, technically a constant since it's all caps, but we'll call it a var. It's okay. This is what we're going to cover later. If you're familiar with HTML, this will look familiar because this just is HTML. So we could honestly just build our website right here. We could just put in more tags and change the content here and do whatever we like just right here. It'll get kind of cumbersome if we do anything more complicated than what's here. So we're not going to do that. But this is really just taking this set of instructions for the hypertext markup language, HTML, and saying what should be displayed on the page at the end. All right, so we're going to do that a slightly different way. We're going to use Django, which says down here. So it says below are templates for Django and Flask. Flask is another backend framework like Django. It's similar and arguably easier to learn. It's lighter. It's got a few less bells and whistles than Django does. But this is set up for us to use either that we want to and run it. We can use other ones if we like. And so there's some configurations below that we're going to get to in a minute once we set that up. But the first thing it says here is a note about virtual envs as well. It says, so if you want to use a virtual environment, you got to set that up first and then go add it to your web tab. We're going to do that here in a second. But I just want to show that our Django information is down here. And right now it's just commented out. So we're going to leave this here for now. We're going to come back to it. But I just want to show you where this is and have this open. Right now we're going to go back over to a console. And we're going to set up our virtual environment before we go setting up Django and do anything else. So let's do that. I'm going to go over to move all this Zoom stuff that's blocking me and get into my consoles. Open this in a new tab. And we're just going to go straight into a regular bash console like we've done a bunch of times before. All right, now, see, I've already got my list up on what's in my home directory, and you see I got rid of any other superfluous stuff. I just have the main file that we used before and classes file that we used in previous sessions, the README that comes standard and the PyCache that we don't need to worry about. We'll just leave that alone. All right. So what we need to do.
You're in the one that says bash console now, right?
Yep. I'm in a bash console.
Okay,
So I'm just right at my home directory in a regular bash console. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up a virtual environment. So I mentioned this a little bit on what these do. I'm going to show you why it's important to do it. So the command that we're going to be using to install packages is called pip, P-I-P, and it's a recursive name. The first P stands for pip. The I stands for install and P stands for packages. And that's the syntax that you write when you use it. So it's pip install packages. And we're going to do that a lot. That's how Python gets new stuff into the environment. Before we use it to install anything, I just want to demonstrate the packages that exist in the environment that I am now in. So I'm going to type pip list. And sorry if you don't do this one with me. It's just, you can just watch this one. It's not going to hurt anything or break anything if you don't. This is more demonstrative. And when I do that, you see there's this huge list of things that it spits out at me, right? And they're all alphabetically ordered, but it's got tons of stuff. There's from everything from A to Z. That is what's there in packages. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up another environment separate of the one we're in now that we can explicitly put in just the packages we need. And this is important because if we're making, what? Go ahead.
Okay, that long list of packages.
Yeah.
Is there a way that one could look in one?
Look in a package?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all those packages they're written in Python somewhere. So yes, you can track down that code and you can read it because it's going to be Python. But these are things like when I showed you import statements before and I said import CSV. That's what these packages, that's what a package really means. Is somebody wrote code in Python. You could write a package if you wanted to. If you wrote something that was really useful, you could put it up on the Python, package repository and other people could pull it down. So there are ways to go find it and read it, but it's not like, I'm not going to point you in the direction of where they are. If you really wanted to get details on them, it's best to look at the documentation online.
Okay, yeah. So if you had a specific problem you wanted to solve, right?
We'll get to that, right? So this is why we set up environments and we're explicit about which packages we put in, because then we know which ones we have, which ones we're using. And it's also important for like when projects get bigger and you're using other people's projects, not just for conflicts, to make sure that you have the right packages with your project, but make sure you're not sending off a ton of useless packages that nobody needs and taking up space, right? So yes, this will help us sort of solve problems if we have issues with a particular package. But the first step is to demarcate an area in our computer that we're going to call a virtual environment that we could put packages into. So Python has something really, really cool built into it for this. So we're going to start off the command by writing Python 3, just like we've done before, space. I'm not going to hit enter yet. And then we're going to add this -m flag. So all lowercase, Python 3 space, then -m. And that flag is for module. And so what we're going to do is it's going to allow us to call another Python module and run a command inside of it. We're going to do this a lot. We're going to do this with other, so Django counts as a module. This virtual environment that we're going to do is the first module we're going to run this with. But there's a really common way to run specific parts of Python modules. So this module that we're going to use, question?
Yeah, give me the one-word definition of what this thing is again, or the one-sentence definition
of a virtual environment.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. So a virtual environment is just an area in your computer where you can install your own packages for Python.
And what this code you have up right now,
this is setting up the virtual environment. So what we're doing is we're going to use the module, which is what the M flag stands for. It's called venv, V-E-N-V, stands for virtual environment. And so that's the name of the module that we're calling. So we do Python 3 module flag, venv, spaces between each of those, all lowercase. And then we're going to pass it a name that we want to give our virtual environment. So there will be a number of times today and kind of throughout where we'll see some redundancy that may seem counterintuitive. You may be, it's similar to like when we did the main.py file and then we had a main function inside of it, but those two names of main had nothing to do with each other. Similar here, by convention, a lot of times you'll just call this virtual environment venv so that you can refer to it later simply and it's easy to remember. But you're not restricted. You can call this whatever you want to. You can call this my environment. You can call it the name of your project. The most important thing is it's something that you're going to remember to call. I'm going to call it VM just to keep it simple and so I remember what to call it. And this again is a real standard kind of just built into Python. It's a real quick way to set up a virtual environment. There are lots of other ways to do it. There are lots of other tools to do it, but this is sort of a fast way.
Is there a constraint around that being co-resident? I mean, if you've got more than one thing going on, obviously everybody can't name it the same thing.
Yeah, so if you have, that's a good question. So what's gonna happen when I run this command is it's gonna make a directory called vn in the directory that I'm in right now, and it's gonna populate that with a bunch of different files that they're all gonna be, you know, serve different purpose. And we're not gonna get too deep into it, but that's really the only thing that you can't conflict with. You can't conflict with another existing directory name. So if you've already made a virtual environment called VM, you can't just use that again. So you'll have to call it something else. So you end up having several virtual environments on your machine. You call them different things.
Sure.
But
So as long as your project isn't coming out of the same folder, who cares?
yeah, and it's not, and that's the thing we'll see here in a minute. It's not even really the folder because you can move around folders once you're in the environment. The folder and environment are two kind of separate things.
Sure.
So this again, you can the naming is you can name it whatever you like. It's really a matter of what you remember. So I'm
Okay,
gonna
so
go with this, but what's up?
okay, the first VENV, that's the virtual environment, right? That's you're setting up.
That's the command. Yeah, that's the command.
Okay.
There's a whole set of things that go with that command too. It's just it's a Python module. Yes, that's the virtual
Okay,
environment.
so the second VENV, that's your personal virtual environment.
Yep. We can even call it
Okay.
my VNV if you want to make it easier to remember, because
Probably,
it's whatever
yeah.
name you want to give it.
I'm
So we
gonna-
can do
I'm
that
gonna-
for
I'm gonna-
demonstrative purposes to make it easier to remember. That's okay too.
Okay,
All right. So once I hit enter on this command, it's going to create this directory for me. It might take a little bit, which is okay. It's probably take, you know, maybe 20, 30 seconds or so. And then what it's going to do is it's going to set this up, and we're going to have a space where we can now put packages that we want to use that we don't want to be everywhere in our system. So the main thing that we're trying to avoid with this is called conflict with packages. So package conflict is a problem. And that's generally speaking when you have different versions of the same package on one system in one environment. So if, for example, you're working on one project where you use, you know, version 3 of a particular package, and then you're working on another project that uses version 2, if you have version 3 globally installed on your system, you might run into conflicts every time you try to run the project that's using the version 2. So this is going to allow us to set up a specific set of tools just for one project. Tracking on that?
okay, so if I get a return here, I have 1:32 with a green $sign. That means I'm inside my virtual.
That means you did the thing and just took you right back. So if you look at my screen, it's taking me right back. So it's got the 132, that's UTC time, I'm assuming. And then
Yeah.
the $sign just means that you're back in control of your bash console. So that it won't give you any real specific feedback that you did it. But if you do your list, what's in there, you'll see that you now have a directory titled
Okay.
the virtual environment that you made. So the next
Okay.
step that we've made this virtual environment is we need to activate it. So we got to put ourselves into it, right? So what I'm going to do is clear the screen real fast. And to activate it, we type in, this is just a bash command. So we could do other things with this, but this word source tells this console what to use as a source file for, you know, itself. Basically, it says, okay, run everything that's in this file that I'm about to give you. And so it's going to expect a directory for you to give it the source. So we're going to give it the directory that we just made. So my venv, and I'm going to tab complete. And then there's another directory we have to get through called bin. So we just type in B and hit tab complete, and it should fill in bin. And then last part is activate. So I just hit letter A, tab complete to activate. So the syntax is always the name of the directory that you just made, the name of the virtual environment that you made, bin, activate, and it'll start your virtual environment. So when I hit enter on this, I should see to the left of that number, the time, in parentheses, the name of the virtual environment that I made. That's my signal to tell me that I'm in that virtual environment.
Okay. Please slow down for a second because I want to copy this down verbatim.
Sure. I'm going to show real quick actually how to get out of this. So I'm going to show how to leave a virtual environment again, so we're not getting stuck like we easily can in things like Vim or whatever. I'm going to show how to leave this and get back in. So I'll go round 2. If you're trying to write down the commands, To get out, we just type deactivate by itself. Nothing else. No caps, lowercase.
Okay.
Deactivate. So we got activate, deactivate, deactivate. And as you can see, the parentheses and the name of my environment disappeared from the left-hand side. So we are no longer in the virtual environment. I'm going to activate it again. So you show that command, right? So you source, name of the virtual environment. So my VM in this case, bin, bin, /activate. And now we're in here. Now I'm going to demonstrate again. So I showed you the pip list from outside of this virtual environment. It was huge, A to Z, tons of stuff. Now I'm going to do that same thing inside the virtual environment. And we should only have two things in here. We should just have pip itself and this thing called setup tools. And that's it. So now we have a clean working area that we can set up our needed packages for only this project and nothing else. So everybody with me so far? I know you're not all following along. But that's all right. I'm not going to call you out. We'll just
Okay.
we'll let that slide. But I want to make sure that we can get to
sure.
this point. So if we get stuck, tell me. Even if it's not now, if you're trying this later and you get stuck, tell me if you can't get past this, and we'll figure out how to get you past this. But everybody's following along. You with me so far?
Yes.
Yes. Okay,
Cool.
now, so you put in the pip list there, right? You entered that as a command.
Yep.
What does that do?
It just shows what packages are currently installed in that environment.
Okay.
So right here, we have a list that says package and version in this little kind of thing here. Let me clear the screen and run it again so we have a little more of just what that is. And it shows this kind of little chart that has package version and then two packages. There's pip, and then it says the version 22.0.4 and setup tools 58.1.0. So those are the only two packages that we have, and they're the ones that just come standard as opposed to those whatever there were outside of this environment.
Okay.
Cool.
When you clear the screen, Jeff, you know how you cleared it?
Yeah.
Well, you're not active in you are active in your version
Yes.
in your environment. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I hit clear, it keeps me in my virtual environment. So I could keep running all the same bash commands that we've done up to now, and it won't affect the virtual environment until we hit deactivate. We're going to be in that virtual environment. So everything we do, even if I change directories, which we're going to be doing soon, we'll still be in that virtual environment.
And hitting clear doesn't make it so that the stuff that you entered isn't there. Is it?
No, it just removes it from the screen. And really all it's doing is kind of paging it up so you could really find it again if you scrolled up further. But yeah, clear doesn't do anything for the environment itself. It doesn't take anything out of it or remove any package, do anything. Really. It just moves stuff off the console screen.
So you have space to do what you gotta
Yeah,
do.
so it's just cleaner looking, instead of just racking it up and writing all the way down. I could just keep going, but it just feels messy to me. So I like writing clear. But it won't affect your environment at all. No. Cool. All right. So now we have this environment. We're going to have to install Django to run it at all. So we follow that syntax of pip install and then the name of the package. So pip dash lowercase install and Django with a capital D this time. I know we've done lowercase for everything else, but this is capital D, Jango. And this is going to take a few minutes. It'll probably take about 5 minutes or so, even though it's got cached versions, because I've run through this a few times. Yours may need to download, so it'll have little pretty lines that show that it's downloaded. But then it's also going to show that it's installing some other packages. So it's got this list of packages that it's installing. You got typing extensions, SQL parse, and ASCII ref, and then Django. So these other packages are ones that Django requires. So when we tell it to download Django, it's going to do that. It's going to install it in our environment, and it's going to also set up whatever else Django needs. And that's the beauty of pip, is that if you say, hey, I need this thing, it'll grab that thing and anything else that it depends on, and they're called dependencies. So it'll put all its dependencies in there for you, and then we will have just what we need to run that package that we need. It may come with other packages, but we'll have exactly what we need for that. So while that runs, again, it's gonna take a few minutes. So we can leave this console running. We're not gonna close it. I'm gonna move to another screen though, just so we could do some other things while this does this. We'll come back and check on it for our next step with this. But we need to go back to our WSGI file, the WSGI configuration file, and make some changes on that to remove the one piece of code and say that we're going to start using Django. All right, so if I go back over to, you can see where we are here. And we could get that again on the web tab. If you don't remember how to get back here, it's under the code section. If you scroll down, and there's just the WSGI configuration file. We're going to open that up, and we remember that our pure WSGI application is here between lines. The actual code starts on line 19 and goes down to 47. So I'm going to highlight all of that. I'm going to hit Control and slash, and it's going to comment all that code out. So now there is no WSGI application running. The interpreter will skip this.
This is on your web tab, right?
This was on my web tab. I got to this from my web tab. So I opened up this WSGI configuration file from the web tab, and that's where I am now, is in this file.
Okay.
The WSGI file.
And this is my,
All right. So we're going to comment out lines 19 to 47 by highlighting them, holding down Control, hitting slash, and it'll put
wait,
us.
I'm a little bit lost here.
Okay. Where are you lost?
Okay. Go back one screen. Okay.
To here?
Now
Yep.
I have that, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Cool. Click on this link, and it'll take you to the file I'm looking at.
Okay. There it is. Under
Got it?
code. Right?
Yep.
Code.
Yep.
WSGI.
Found it?
Yes.
Cool. All right. Now, once you open this up, comment out lines 19 to 30, what did I say, 47? So that it will not run. And then we're going to scroll down to line 74, where Django starts. And some of the stuff is commented. It says, hey,
how do you comment all those lines at once?
highlight all the lines, hold down Control, and then hit slash, and it'll comment all the lines that you highlighted.
Okay. I'm going to have trouble with this because my left mouse key is broken.
And we're going to do these same things to uncomment the code inside the Django piece. So same thing, I'm going to highlight all these commented out lines, and I'm going to hit Control and slash, and it'll take all the comments off. So now we should have our lines about 76 to 89 uncommented, ready to roll. We got a couple of comments in here that say that this configuration is assuming we have files in specific locations. So assuming that we have home, my username, and then it says my site settings.py, and my site manage.py. We don't have either of these yet. We'll go set these up next. That's the next step that we're going to do.
Sorry to be a drag here, but
What's up?
the ones that you commented, what line items were those?
The ones that I commented out above? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's everything from lines 19 to lines 47. So the WSGI app that was in here originally, the Hello World thing that we saw on the other page,
Okay.
comment all that code out. And then we're going to uncomment lines 76 to 89.
Okay, I'm gonna have to do these one at a time because I'm having a.
So this is, again, we're not going to break down exactly what this is doing. I recommend reading it at some point and really get a handle on it. But the most important thing right now is it's expecting these files to be here. So we have to go set those files up.
Jeff,
Now, yeah,
excuse me.
sure.
In this, can you do like, can you click on like line 74, then hold down the shift key and click on line 89 to highlight them all?
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
Michael, if your right mouse button isn't working, click on the line that you want at the top, hold down, and then go to the bottom, hold down your shift key and click on the bottom one you want, and you don't have to use your right mouse button.
Yeah, good call. Thanks,
Okay,
Marty.
so you click on, it's highlighted, right? Like 19 is highlighted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to go to 37.
So
Hold on,
hold down your
that's
shift.
47.
Yeah, hold on shift to go to 47.
47.
Yep. And then just click at the end of the 47 line, and it'll highlight that too.
Okay, there we go.
And then hold down Control and hit slash, and it'll take or comment all that stuff out.
Slash?
Yep.
My God, it did so.
Yeah. It's good stuff, right?
Okay. Oh, wait a
Cool.
minute.
And then,
You know what it did? It commented out everything there is on this whole page.
well, I mean, all the pages already commented out. So that's how they do this is they comment out everything and then you uncomment what you need. So we're going
Okay.
to skip down to line 76 and
Okay.
uncomment to row 89. Uncomment all those lines. And then we'll have our Django WSGI configuration set up and it can run Django. It won't yet because we don't have these files set up like it lists on row 79 and 80. We're going to go set those up next. But now it has this ready to go.
Mine only goes to 88.
You should have application down in 89 where it says application equals get WSGI application.
No,
Make sure you get that part or else it's not going to work.
I don't see that.
All right. So we're going to move. If you get really stuck, we can come back to it.
Okay.
But let's move forward and set up these files. So Django as a framework. A framework, what that really means is written in Python, but it's going to give you sort of templated parts that you're going to be able to use and customize. And to operate this, we're going to go back to our consoles. First, I'm going to save this before I leave, since we made some changes. I'm going to save this. And so now Django should be done installing. And it is. So I could tell because I've gotten control back and it says successfully installed Django. It says which version and then the other packages that it installed. I can further verify again if I wanted to and type pip list and just see that now I have all those packages installed in my environment. So now we're ready to rock. We can use Django. We could do some stuff with it. So what we're going to do to get started is we have to start what's called in Django a project. So the high top level, the very first thing that you get going on with Django is called a project. And it's going to come with a directory that you give the project name, a couple directories, our setting file, basically those things that were highlighted in the WSGI file that said you need. Django is going to give you those. So the way we get that to happen is similar to what we did with the VM. We're going to do Python 3, and then we're going to use the M flag again because we're going to use a module, and we're using Django this time. So lowercase, so we do Python 3 space -M for the module flag, space lowercase Django. And then we're going to type start project, all one word, space, and then we're going to give it a name, whatever name we want. I'm going to use my site just to make sure that it's easy naming conventions. It follows what we're going to do along the way, and we don't forget what we're looking for when we go look for the directory. But again, you can call your projects whatever you like. I recommend sticking it to this just for ease of following along. If you start using different names for stuff and then you get jammed up later because something doesn't work, it's going to be a pain. So just remember what you call stuff. My site for ease of demonstration. So when I hit start project, my site. What this is going to do is it goes very fast this time because there's not much to it. I'm going to show you that now, well, let me clear my screen first so there's not a whole bunch of extra stuff on here. I'm going to show you that we now have a my site directory that's in there. The very bottom of the list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change directories into that directory because this is where we're going to be, sorry, I misspelled all the time. This is where we're going to be working most of the time. So if I look what's in this, I will have a manage.py and I will have another my site directory. This is a Python or a Django convention that the project title and the first folder that's in there, the first directory that's in there, are going to have the same name. And there's a reason for that. And we'll see that as we add what are called applications. So when we build our to-do list, we're going to add an application here. It's going to have another directory with that application name. I'm going to show you what's inside this inner my site file because it's important. And these are the standard things that come with it. So it's come populated with this set of 4 files. Well, 5 really counting this init.py. This is a standard Python thing. There's nothing written in this one. This is just to make this a module. This is how modules work in Python. We're not going to get deep into that function. We've seen something somewhat similar with the classes when we initialize classes. Very similar mechanics here. We're going to spend a lot of time talking today in settings.py. It's a very important part of Django. This has all your basic parts and pieces for the web application on like how it connects and how it gets running on the web and how it finds the URL it needs and all those sorts of things. So we're going to be using this a lot. The other files, we're not going to talk too much about. URLs we will, but not today. And these other ones we already talked about WSGI, so there's another place you could put it if you wanted to set this one up or whatever the case may be. We're just going to ignore the other 2 files largely for this course. Just know that they're how you interact with different web things. This WSGI is a standard for things, and this ASGI is how you could do like WebSockets and asynchronous work. That's what the A stands for. The W stands for web. We won't get too deep into that, but settings, we definitely will. So now that we have our basic file structure, we have our location. This is going to be our working directory. If we print our working directory, so we're now in home, username, my site. And to refresh your memory, that is where our manage.py file is. That's very important. So when we run our programs up to now, our main.py, remember we wrote those and we do Python 3 main.py, we're going to be running a lot of commands through this manage.py thing. So we need to be in this directory when we do most of our work from the command line. So this is how we're going to run things. This is how, if you're doing this locally, how we run the development server. And most of the things that we're going to do require you to be in this directory. So you got to keep track of where you are. And this is the working directory to be in. So we've now created our basic parts. We need to go configure a few more of them to make sure that they run properly. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to our web tab. And now that we do have our source code path, we can enter that in here. So the application on Python Anywhere knows where to look for our code now that we have some. So I'm going to copy this default working directory that's down here because it's the same beginning. It's in my home directory. So I'm just going to paste that in here. And then I'm just going to type my site at the end, because that is the directory where, like I mentioned, our manage.py file is. That's our source code sort of root directory. I'm going to change this to my site as well, which, again, you don't really have to. But that is, if we decide we want to use this little shortcut to go over there on the working directory, we can. Then we're good there. So we're going to scroll down. And the same thing with our virtual env. So we could put in the path to our virtual environment that we created, which, recall, for naming conventions, we called it my_venv. And now it'll know where to look for the packages we install in that environment. It'll know where to look for our source code. And this page is now configured. So we can leave this for now. We're going to keep it open, though. I recommend that you do the same because we will be coming back to it. But we're going to slide over into our files section. I'm going to open this in another tab. And we're going to go down into that settings file. We're going to do some stuff in settings. So now I'm going to step through and we'll have a visual representation of the same thing. So here we went at the first my site level, and now we see our manage.py file. And there's nothing else really in here. So we're going to step in a level further to get to our settings.py. So now we're in, your home directory /my site. So redundantly, 2 levels of my site down to our settings.py. I'm going to open that up. This is the standard settings file. It comes with every Django project. So we're going to spend some time in here coming back and forth as we set different parts up. Right now, to get going, there are a few things that we really should get doing at the beginning of every project that you do with Django that are just important to do. So we're not going to, what happened here? Let's move myself off that screen. Okay, so we're not going to go through every piece of this. There's quite a bit here. There's had a lot of stuff built in. This is all just in Python again, so you can read it, kind of get a sense of what's happening. We will go through this as we build the app. But for now, we're going to focus on the very top pieces underneath. So it starts about line 13, where you have this import statement down to line 28. And we're going to do some changes to the configuration here. So I want to highlight the first thing that comes in here. It's called the Django secret key on line 23. This is going to come with a standard long string of random stuff. But this is something that you don't want to leave here and leave open. So best practice when you get going is we're going to move this out into an environment file. It's called a .env file. It's a hidden file that won't be saved in version control software. When we get to that at the end of the course, it won't get pushed up into that. So it'll only be saved on whatever device you're working on in any particular moments. When we make this one here, it's only going to be here. If you're working locally and you share code somewhere else, any of those .env files, those don't get traded from place to place. This is a way to keep things somewhat secure. It's a way to hide stuff. And the best practice is every time you start to pull the security key out and put it in one of those files. So we're going to do that now. We're going to do that. So there's going to be another little kind of bouncing around a little bit, making some files, moving some things. Shouldn't be too complicated though. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go, I'm actually just going to do it this way so that we're not messing around making too many files in the console. We'll just make a file from the GUI. We'll go back to our files tab. And to be really clear on where we are so we don't have any confusion, I'm going to go into the same directory where my settings file is. All right, so here's my settings file. I'm in that my site directory. And I'm going to go to this file box that says enter a name for a new file. I'm going to type dot, so period, and then env. This again is a real standard name of this. So this is what people use, but you could call it really anything. But this is what it's called, so we know what it's called. So I'm going to make this file, and it should take me right there, and it'll be empty. There's nothing in this. So again, we're at my site.env. That's where we are now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to declare a variable in here. This isn't Python necessarily. It's just a plain text file. But I'm going to use the variable conventions, and I'm going to create a Django secret key. You could just call this secret key. I tend to call it Django because when the projects get bigger, you start having other secret keys. Possibly you might have different reasons to use that. So I just label it to be explicit. You could, again, call it whatever you like. But what we're going to do is I'm just going to take for this demonstration this secret key that's already listed here, and I'm just going to remove it, take it out, and put it over in that other file as the value for that variable that I made. So I'm going to take this out. I'm not going to save it because that's a malformed variable. But I'm just going to drop the whole string over in my .env file. So I got Django secret key equals this thing. And we're going to save this file. So now we have to get it back into that settings file somehow, right? It has to be the value that's in here. So to do that, we're going to have to add a couple of lines of code. We're going to have to import from this package called environ, so short for environment, and it's going to be able to give us the ability to grab things out of the environment. So this env file that's in our environment, we're going to go to it, grab some stuff, and we're going to import a class from it called env. So this should look fairly familiar from our import statements before when we were doing things with classes. Class is capitalized, and we're going to import that. So now we could do things with that class. I'm going to go down to line 24 and give myself a couple lines of space, and I'm going to use that class to grab our env file and grab the information out of it. So we're going to do, like we've done before, we have to instantiate the class first. So I'm just going to call this for naming conventions, env, lowercase, as my variable name, but again, you call it whatever you like, it's a variable. And then we call the larger class with open and close parentheses. So that's an instance on line 25 of the environment class that we're calling from this environ package. And then we could do some things with this. So we are going to do env.read environment. Again, env is short for that. So env, you see this a lot over and over again. It's short for environment. So we do env.read underscore env open parentheses. And this is going to give us the ability to read files, get the information out of it. We're going to specify with a keyword argument the file that we want to get. Sorry, if somebody's putting something in. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see you, Martin. That's all right. No worries. You got allergies. Cough away. Okay, so we're going to pass this keyword argument to tell it which environment file to look for. So to do that, we do env file equals, and then we're going to give it a string name. So this should be the my site/.env. We're going to close that string and then close the parentheses. So that's going to open up that file. It's going to read the file, and it's going to have all that information available to us in our env variable. So then all we have to do here is grab the piece that we need, and we know we called it all caps because it's thought of as a constant, even though it's, it's a variable, but constants in Python are all capitalized. So it's constant Django secret key, and it is a constant in this case because it's not going to change. So then we just call it by name. So we do env, open parentheses, Django secret key, close parentheses. So this should give us the ability to grab the information out of that environment file and populate it here so that this settings file is now more secure. So it's safer. We can save it into a version control system like GitHub or something like that, which we'll be doing later in the course. And you don't want to send unsecure things up into those places. So this is a really good habit to get into when you start a project, is just do this first. That way your secure information remains that way and it doesn't get broadcast out there to the entire internet. So I'm going to save this. Before I leave here, do one more thing. And it's in line now 32 since I've made some space and moved things down. But this constant or variable called allowed hosts. So this is a list of URLs that this application will allow to communicate with. So you need to explicitly tell it which URLs you can use. It's possible to send an asterisk in here and say allow everything. Definitely don't want to do that because that's not the safest thing. You could do that if you're doing local development, but I advise against it, but it's possible you can do it. What we're going to do is just explicitly write in a string the name of our URL, the name of our application, which again, we can find on our web page. We go to the web tab and it'll be right here. So it's just username.pythonanywhere.com. It's going to be your username.pythonanywhere.com is going to be the URL that we're going to use. So no leading information, no HTTP, none of that. Just username.pythonanywhere.com in allowed hosts as a string. And this should give us the basic configuration that we need. Hopefully, if I haven't broken anything or done anything wrong. This should give us all the parts that we need now to run our basic Django web application. It should. So let's see if it worked. So we've done a bunch of changes. We've added a bunch of things. I'm going to go back to my web tab and I'm going to reload the app. So this is going to take all the changes that I made into it, that I took into account, the virtual environment, the code base, all that stuff, and reload it. So when I run this time, I'm going to open a new tab, see what happened. Oh, something went wrong. So I broke something. All right, now we got to solve this problem. So this will give us, because, I forgot to call this out in settings. I skipped over this. In settings, skipped over between the secret key and the allowed host, there's this setting called debug, and it's by default set to true. Because it's set to true, it gives us somewhat more detailed information when something breaks. So we're going to keep that set to true for development. But when you go to production, you want to set that to false. And this will give you a generic like 505 or 404 error or whatever. It'll give you some other error that says that didn't work. But this will give us a lengthy message. And in this message, there's a link to our error logs. So we could go straight to it here. But if you forgot how to get to that, you can also get to it on your web tab, scroll down, and it's right here in the middle on your error logs. Either one will get you to the same place. So I'm just going to open it here. And I got too many things open now. Let's close some of these. Here's my error log. All right. Cool. So it looks like we got some issues. And this is our error. It says error running this application. I kind of skipped down because it's just saying, hey, if you're getting this error, I don't know why, look into this. But then it says module not found error. Module, no module named environment. So anybody that's on the call has been following this long. What do you think the solution to this module, no module error, no module named environment, what's the solution to this?
Well, at the very beginning, you said that there were 2 files that we needed to create, manage and settings.
Okay, follow
That's
that
what it's
through.
asking about, right?
Well, let's see. Okay, so we got this settings. We've been messing with that, right? So we have our settings file. And I'll show you here. I can get out of this one. If I go back
So
to
the
my
other one was
site.
manage.py.
Yeah, so we got that one here. So I like where it has that. That's good thinking. We have
But
both of
is
those
it-
though.
Does it have in it what it needs?
It does. So this is by default. So
Okay.
we don't ever go into this and do anything with it. This is just comes with Django. So this will have what it needs. So that's not the issue. Settings is also not the issue. All right, I'm gonna scroll down a little bit on the error message. So when it comes down
Did
to
you activate it?
did I activate it? Okay, follow that through. What do you mean by activate it?
Well, did you tell it to call from that?
Okay, yeah, you're getting closer. All right, so when I scroll down on the error message, it'll tell me specifically all the files and lines of code that it called to get this error. And the last one typically is like the first one, really. So the one that's listed here at the bottom is sort of the thing that set all of this off, basically. So look at this. It says which file. So it was in my settings file at line 15. It says from environment import env.
So you
That-
didn't spell out environment?
No, that's actually the name of the package. Good guess. So what I didn't do, I'm gonna have to go back to my console. You guys are all real close, but not quite. So this is what I was mentioning with pip and packages. We don't have that package in our environment. So that missing module means that it doesn't have, if we go back to our list here, sorry, I keep having to move all the Zoom stuff that's in the way, the chats and whatnot. So I can clear this. Whoa, stop shouting. Clear this up. And if I write pip list, we'll see that there's nothing in here. That's an environment thing. So we didn't install it here. So what that error is telling us, whenever you hear module not found, no module named, whatever, the first thing you should think is, did I put it in my environment? Do I have that accessible in there? So you can write the import statement at the top of your page all day long, and we did that. And this is a properly formed import statement. But if we don't put that in our environment in the first place, we can't access it. So it's a missing package. So that's the solution to this particular problem. So we're going to fix that by doing pip install, and I'm going to do Django environ. It's a special version of this larger Python package that's specially tuned for Django. That's going to get us what we need to read those files that we were talking about in the environment. So when I hit enter, this is only going to take a second to install. There, it's installed. So now we do have that package in our environment for sure.
Quick question, Jeff.
Yes.
When you were going over, when you went back to the errors,
Mhm.
how did you know that it was the package that wasn't installed?
Because anytime you get this module not found error, that's
Uh-huh.
almost always what it means. It almost always means that you don't have this package in your environment. And you have to go
Oh,
install it.
oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's like, if you see this, you're like, I forgot to install a package. And
Okay.
so again, there's like, I kind of purposefully stumble on this one to show you
Sure.
that it's something that happens a lot. And, instead of trying to filter through all this message, you're like, I just forgot to import something, and it's just not in my environment. So, anytime you run something and you think you got all the stuff right, and you think you're there, if you see this, especially if the code line that gives you is the import statement, if the import statement is wrong, if you're importing from a package out external to your application, make sure that you import it into your environment first before you run it. And that should solve the problem. If it's import from your own code, like we did before, we imported classes, make sure you spelled everything right. This could also be possibly a typo, but this one I know is not a typo because I kind of set us up on this one. But does that answer your question?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
cool. Yeah, sure. Sorry, I'm going to make you jump off mute just to say yes, but yeah, right on. Okay, nice. So now I'm going to go back, since I've made that change in the environment and I did some other things with it. I'm going to go back here and refresh or reload the server, even though may not be required at this point. This is just something I do out of habit. That anytime I make a change, come back here and reload it to make sure this got the most up-to-date information that it could. Then hopefully, when I go over here, I should see this cool little rocket thing that says the install worked successfully. And this is the point that I want you all to be able to get to. This is the foundational piece that we're going to build on top of. So getting here is crucial. And this is where I wanted to get today, is for all of you to be able to run this. This should, if once you know how to do this and you've done it a few times, all the steps that we did today roughly take like 5-10 minutes, maybe, So we still have some time between now and the end of class. If you haven't gotten here, definitely get here.
I think I did something wrong with the virtual environment and the paths.
Okay.
Source code working directory.
Okay.
Now,
On your configuration on this page, you mean?
my site. Yeah.
Okay.
Did I just forget the slash? Maybe that's it.
Did you follow the same conventions when you set this up? Like you just called it my site and
I did to-do list, but
Ah.
yeah, same thing.
yeah, be
Now, it
careful, man, because
tells
the
me-
application we actually make is going to be called to do. So when we make that application name, there's going to be another folder in there called to do. That's why, again, it's
Okay.
there are reasons we follow the conventions that we do, and it's the top level project being different than the application name that you're going to make is the reason is because the project folder is going to have all your settings and those sorts of things, and you don't really add much to it. Like this, well, I'm going to back up and show you what's in here. So in this folder, we're going to have, or this directory, we're going to have our environment folder, our environment file. We're going to have this init.py, which again is real standard, and our settings and our top level URLs thing. And that's it. We're not going to add much here. We're not going to do much with this. And this is going to be the standard in every project. So like as we add new applications, we add the to-do list and we start making those things, they're going to be in directories alongside of this one, inside of this larger my site thing. And so we're going to want to be able to identify which folders has our settings in it reliably out of what could potentially be a large number of packages when you start making, or applications rather, sorry, a large number of applications when you start making a larger project. You know, this could be, again, we're going to do a simple to-do list, a task list. But, you know, if you have, say, like a sign-in function for your website, that could be one application that does just that. And then the to-do list would be a separate application that does just that. And then if you have, say, I don't know, reservation thing that reserves tables at a restaurant or something, you'll have a set of functions in an application that does just that. So as projects get bigger outside of the simple one that we're going to build, you'll have several folders in here, several directories, and it's just best practice to name the one that has your settings in it the name of the top level project that has everything in it. But did you figure out where you're stuck, Chris?
Oh, wait, I think so. So yeah, the folder is actually VENV, right?
Yes. So your virtual environment folder, yeah. If that's what you named it, we named it my_VENV just to show that you didn't have to name it VNV.
Right.
But it's also keeping in mind that it's in our home directory,
Home.
basically. Our user
Username.
directory, right? Yeah. So it's on the same level as the top level my site directory is equivalent to that. It's outside of it.
So it's just home and your name.
Yep. So then we do home username. And so when we're on the web tab and putting the virtual env path, it's just home username and then the virtual environment name. For this one, again, you can put the virtual environment really wherever you want to, but we put this one at the top level so that
There.
it's just
Yep.
easy to find.
That did it.
You got it?
Something went wrong. So not quite, but I'm getting closer.
All right. All right.
All right, what did I do?
So again, this is the goal for today, is to get everybody to have a rocket launching that says that they installed and congratulations. Because we're going to take this and everything that we build in the next 3 weeks is going to be built in here. So this is the foundation for the web application. This is the basis of it. We're going to start adding things to it and really digging in. On Thursday, we're going to set up the basic routing and show how routing works through here, how different pages are served, and we'll set up the home page that we're going to have. So we have something other than this to look at. But even on here, you know, if you wanted to get some more knowledge about Django as you go, this starts out with the link down here at the bottom to the documentation. There's a tutorial on how to build a polling app, which again, it's going to be fairly similar to the stuff that we're going to do here. So if you want to start following along that, you can start looking at that. And that's totally cool. Get a sense of what things we're going to cover. Again, that's going to obviously be way more in depth than what we're going to do here, but it's the same mechanics. So it's worth, you flipping through. Anybody else stuck in some spot that we might want to get unstuck here? We got to last, say, 15 minutes or so of class. So I can stop the recording and we can go over any questions or anything anybody has.
Okay, well, I'm still working on a broken computer. I I can't copy, you know, I can't highlight things and
Oh,
that
man.
kind of stuff. So the, we're on the web part, right?
Which one's back on the web page? I'm gonna stop the recording, then we can dig into
Yeah,
to
okay,
what you
yeah.
got. Sure. 1 second. All right.
Okay,